Hello everybody, if you're new here, welcome. In today's video, we are going to discuss the Magician card in Tarot. I'm going to take you guys through what it means, some of the signs and symbols, themes, the significance in a spread, and then some reflection prompts, some journaling prompts, some things to sit with and think about. I do have notes here, so if I'm looking off to the side, I apologize if that's distracting. I just don't want to miss anything. And so by the end of the video, the intention is for you guys and myself to be able to understand the Magician deeper, to be able to connect with him in everyday life, to be able to embody the archetype, and to be able to understand what it's telling us when it comes out in a reading. And so firstly, I want to talk about the symbols that are in the card. So I'll hold the card up for you guys to have a look. This here is the Magician. So there's a lot to look at. I love this card. I love it so much. As you can see, it's number 1. So it's not the first card in the deck. I've already done a video on the Fool in Tarot, which is 0, which is the first card in the Major Arcana. So this is the Magician. This is the second card in the deck. Now, the first symbol that I wanted to go ahead and talk about is the infinity symbol above his head. So the infinity symbol is obviously of that. It's infinite. It's access to unlimited potential. I spoke a little bit in the last video about the snake eating the tail for the significance of 0. It's kind of like that here. It's like cycles, you know. It's the beginning. It's also a connection between the physical and the spiritual. So if you have a look, it's above the person's head. So it's in between the spiritual realm and the physical realm here. So I think that that is a super significant symbol in the card. I'm not going to pick out all the symbols because we could be here forever doing that, like I said in the last video, but I did pick out, I think, 4 major things to go through. So that is one of them. And just going from that whole spiritual to physical realm connection, you also have the posture. So I also spoke on the posture of the Fool. Posture, I think, is super important when we're looking at the Major Arcana and the Minor Arcana in Tarot. It tells us a lot. So you can see that he's got one arm pointed up towards the sky with his tool there, and then he has his other arm pointed down to the earth. So this is like a channeling. This is like bringing thought and desire and imagination into physical, tangible action, you know, having that spiritual connection, but that grounded energy as well, and being the bridge between that. So the posture there is super important. And the next thing that I had were the flowers. So there's heaps of flowers around the border of the card, and I thought he had some on his belt. And I think in my other deck, the belt that the figure is wearing is coated in flowers. So flowers are symbolic of blooming, right? Of new beginnings, of things coming into fruition, as we've just spoken about, bringing that spiritual, that logical, that thought, that imagination down into the physical, into grounded, into form. And the last one, this is kind of a big symbol, and it's multiple symbols, but I wanted to put it into one for this reason. All of the things that are on the table here, we have all of the suits of the Minor Arcana. So we have pentacles, cups, swords, and wands, and each of these represents something different. I'm so sorry, I have no idea where that cut out. So I'm going to begin talking about that again. Each of these objects on the table represents a suit in the Minor Arcana. Now, not only do they have their own significance, but they have an element tied to them as well. So you have the cups, which is water. You have pentacles, which is earth. Wands is fire, and swords is air. So we have all of our elements there. And then you have, if you will, the 5th element of spirit, of source, and the infinity. But your suits in the Minor Arcana have a theme. Now, I'm not going to dive too deep into them because I'd like to do, you know, videos on each because they need that length of time to be discussed. But I did want to tap on just a couple of little things for each of them. So you have, where is it here? So cups being water is it's emotions, it's intuition, it's like that internal, quite a feminine energy, if you will. It's very, if you think, I don't know if whoever's watching this uses astrology in their everyday life, but then you can think of the different zodiacs, you know, Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio, they're all water signs. So it's quite emotionally, intuitively charged. And then you have Pentacles, which is like the physical. It's abundance, it's money, it's your career, your body. So anything that's in the physical, you know, Earth being its sign is what that represents. Swords, your airy energy, so your intellect, your knowledge, your intelligence, your logic, that's all to do with the suit of swords. And then your last one, being wands, is fire, like creativity, passion, desire, it's drive. All of these things are within each of the suits, and they're all on the table here in this card. So the theme of the Magician is kind of conscious creation. And with that being said, you already have everything you need type of energy. Everything we need. So in order to bring your spiritual concept down into the physical realm, you need tools to do that, right? And this card is all about you already have everything you need. What can you create with what you've already got? You know, leaving excuses behind and asking yourself how. It's going from can't to how. So I am dipping into the themes there a little bit quickly. The number 1 is significant as well. So you've got new beginnings, potential, movement, forward movement, creativity, and obviously being one, individuality. So what is it that we bring, 333 as I look down, what is it that we bring through and across our bridge? What is it that we bring from the higher realms, from our own imagination, our own psyche, our own source, if you will, down into the physical? What is it that wants to be birthed through us, and how do we do that? Yeah, with that being said, I think we can wrap up that symbol sort of category. Obviously, like I said before, we could sit here and depict different symbols in the card. You could talk about colors, you could talk about all sorts of things, but we're just going to leave it at that, because I do encourage you, after you watch this video and videos like it, to sit and depict symbols that stand out to you from the card, and do your own research into what those symbols mean, what they're telling you, what they're depicting, and why they're standing out to you. Okay, so moving forward, we have themes. A huge theme of this card is realizing your own power and potential. So it's realizing that you do have the strength and the power and the knowledge and the tools and the logic and the body to be able to bring forward what it is that you desire to. So it's a lot on, you know, self-belief, it's clarity. So the energy that the Magician brings is a clarifying, knowing energy. You know, it's a belief in yourself, it's a knowing in yourself, it's a grounding in yourself and your knowledge and your power and your wisdom. It's like this communion, you know. Not only is it the bridge between the spiritual and the physical, but it's the balance between those two within ourselves, and realizing that we have that potential and that we have that power within us and that we can trust it too. What else do we have here? Yeah, so it's the can't to the how. It's shifting the mindset of like, oh, well, I haven't graduated yet, or I don't have a space to do what I want to do. I don't have people around me who believe in me. I don't have the tools. I don't have the knowledge. It's all of those excuses that we've been using to hold ourselves back being transmuted into, okay, what do I have? Let's not focus on what I don't have, and let's focus on what I do have and what I can do with that. You know, it's knowing that you may not have it all figured out, but that you have enough to take that first step and to trust and to have that confidence in yourself and your path and your mission here and your desire, your need to create, your individuality. What is it that you're here to bring? And it's having the confidence in bringing that forward with what you have. It's not about gathering the tools. You've already got it. You've gathered the tools, you've gathered the knowledge, you've gathered the physical things that you need, and you've gathered the emotional security, protection, maturity in order to play those things out, in order to bring those things through. And it's about acknowledging that and then using that, stepping into that power. Not only acknowledging that power, but then stepping into that power, which kind of goes into its next card, which will be the High Priestess. That'll be what we discuss in the next video. Yeah, it's about committal. So it's about no longer are you saying and speaking the things that you wish to do into existence, but you're actioning them. It's words into action. So you might actually find that you stop talking about all the things that you're doing, that you don't really want to share at all, and that you're just making dedicated, committed action towards those things. Projects, plans, people, your words become more intentional, they become more confident, they become more grounded, they become more persuasive in a positive way if it's in balance. You know, it's really this grounded, is such, I get so excited when I talk about the Magician, because it's really this like stepping out of this, the Fool, you know, it was childlike exploration and wonder and the start of the journey, and it's stepping into this, I have what I need, I learned my lessons, I gathered my tools along my journey, I'm ready to take a step. I'm ready to acknowledge the fact that I can do this, that I will do this, and that maybe I don't have all the things that I thought I needed, but I have enough to start. Yeah, it's a sureness in what you're saying. It's like you stop second guessing yourself. I'm sure that we've all experienced moments in our lives where we talk about something so passionately that we aspire to do, and someone has a negative comment to say about that, or a not so supportive one, and not very optimistic one, and it taints the way that we think or feel towards that thing that we felt so passionate about. And it's stepping out of that and into, even if that happens, you have this sureness about these things that you want to do. You're like, nope, this is what I'm setting out to do, and this is what I'm going to do. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else except for me. Thought becomes reality through intention and action. So upon my research, which I do before all of these videos, I work with these cards, but I always do some research before these videos because there is so much within them that I want to pull out the real key things. And in that research, I came across that quote, thought becomes reality through intention and action, which is what we're talking about, right? Through intention and action, you're bringing this thought, this idea, this image into fruition. You know, you're actioning that, you're taking calculated, conscious, intentional steps towards creating that thing. And you're doing that with, like I've spoken about, confidence, with a knowing of the power that you have, with a sureness about yourself and what you're doing and what you're creating and why you're creating it. This energy is not about, it's about communication, yes, but it's not about communicating all of the things that you're going to bring from here to here. It's not about that. It's about communicating from your soul, from your most intuitive knowing wise part of yourself, with who you need to communicate with, but it's also about learning where communication doesn't need to be had. And I'm a big communicator. I need communication. I need crystal clear clarity. I need a lot of things into words. But there are times in our lives where we keep these things to ourselves and we just take action towards them. You don't need to go, oh, I'm writing a book, or I'm creating this music video, or I'm going to meet with X and Y and Z in order to, understand more about this, and this. That time will come. The time to really share that with everybody else will come. But right now, this is about you and your tools and your process and stepping into that. And it doesn't have to be done on your own. You can do that with community and with people that you trust. But the magician really talks a lot about learning what communication needs to be had externally and what communication needs to be had internally, which is a super beautiful energy, because communication is a big thing, I think, in today's day and age. We struggle as humans, as a society, as a collective, to communicate efficiently. So this card is beautiful, this energy is beautiful, this archetype is great, and it shows up in everyday life. You're probably watching this going, being able to relate little things back to your life, which is awesome. And to tap into the shadow side of this card. Now, the shadow side of a card is always the theme of the card in its imbalanced state. So if we're talking about confidence, if we're talking about forward movement, if we're talking about channeling ideas and beginning new things and realizing power, what are the opposites of that? And a few key things I took down is you can become manipulative. I have the power to do this, and you choose to do that in a way that's too much. I'm sure we've all been manipulated by someone, or someone has attempted to manipulate thoughts, feelings, and emotions with all of us at some point in our lives. And that is the imbalanced side of this card. Is becoming manipulative. It's becoming performative rather than speaking words and putting them into action. It's all just talk. You hear all bark, no bite. It's like this, I'm gonna, I can. It's this confidence, but it's performative. It's so that the other person is interpreting them as powerful and as strong and potentially as better than, which is not nice. We don't want to be doing that. And controlling, that's the other thing. So this energy, if not balanced correctly, if not tapped into from the right place, can become very controlling, as opposed to creating, you're controlling. And which is not good. We don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be controlling. We all know, I talk about it a lot, the second that you think you have control of something is the second stuff goes out of control, because you're attached to an outcome then. You're working for an outcome, and you're not leaving space for things to unfold the way that they need to unfold. You're micromanaging, you're toying, you're putting, you're playing with the pieces on the board, which is not your role. Your role is to create, not to control, to create. Those are two different things. And so that definitely, speaking about those themes, is what the magician can bring forward when we're talking about it popping up in a spread. So the magician in a spread, if you're someone who pulls one card and you just pull the magician, it's usually a sign to go, hey, you have everything you need. Take that next step. Hey, something is coming, and you're ready. Take that next step. Don't convince yourself, don't tap back into that energy of excuses and reasons why that you can't do it, and that doubtful mindset. Step into that power, step into your knowing, step into your confidence, and move forward with that. Forward movement. It's about taking that next step. Sure, you don't understand how it's all going to play out, but take that next step. You've got everything you need. If it's reversed, if it's sideways, if it's flipped over, that could be a shadow side. It could be you're trying to control a situation. Are you trying to manipulate people around you without knowing it? Are you speaking a lot about the things that you want to do and the things that you want to birth and create, and not actually taking action, you know. And I don't want to talk about good and bad here. I don't fully believe in good and bad, but it's about balance and imbalance, you know. And so it's never you're being a manipulative person and you need to shed light on yourself. It's not like, the cards aren't telling you that. The cards are saying, hey, let's cast some light on these areas. Could you potentially be a little bit more conscious about where you're speaking and not acting, about where you're manipulating and controlling and not creating, so forth. Yeah, so that's definitely how it can show up in some spreads. We could sit here and talk about that all day long. You know, if it shows up with the Fool, like we've spoken about before, perhaps it's you're moving out of this childlike energy and out of the journey and into the birthing and the creation process and the channeling process, which is such a beautiful energy to be in. Yeah. So some prompts that I have here, I have some prompts and some affirmations. So the Magician really does ask a lot of us when we're stepping into our power, and we want to do that in a balanced way. We want to be doing that consciously and intentionally. And so I've got, how can I stop avoiding and start doing? Find something. It doesn't have to be anything big, but find something that you're avoiding doing in your life, and how can you start taking action towards doing that thing? Instead of just thinking about it, dreaming about it, putting it on the back burner, how can you take action towards that thing now? Little action every day. What excuses am I making that are holding me back? Where are you making excuses for yourself or others or your situation? Where are you unconsciously, subconsciously putting yourself in positions that don't allow you to take what you want, to create what you want, to tap into the energy, into creation, into, you know, are you putting yourself in situations that feel unsafe so that you don't feel safe enough to tap into this power? Are you putting yourself in, you know, friend groups that are not supportive of you so that you don't tap into this, I know that I can do this, I have the power to, you know? Are you doing that? Where are you doing that in your life? And how can you take considered action to remove yourself from those situations so that you are in a safe enough space to tap into that power and that potential and that knowing and move forward? What can I create with what I already have? Sure, maybe you haven't finished the course, maybe you don't have the degree, maybe you don't have the training, maybe you don't have the support, but with what you've got, what can you create? With what you've got, what can you maybe start? How can you prepare yourself now for what you would like to come later? Where am I more powerful than I realize? In what areas of your life? Maybe people tell you all the time, hey, like, you've got this wild outlook on life. I've never met anybody like you. You know, you're so optimistic, and you're like, what the hell are these people talking about? Those areas there, pay attention to them. What are people commenting on? What are people realizing that you don't quite see in yourself? And sit with that and understand where power lies that you fail to see. Where does power lie in your life that you haven't looked at, that you haven't accepted, that you haven't seen? Am I acting with intention, or am I just hoping for the best? Are you taking calculated action towards what it is you want to create? Or are you just kind of half-assing and hoping that something happens, sort of thing? We're all guilty of this. We all drop the ball a little bit. We get a little bit tired, a little bit exhausted, and we're like, I'll put this, you know, put a little bit of it in there and we'll see what happens. Where can you stop doing that and start going, okay, no, this is what I want. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to help me get there. How can it be more conscious, more intentional, more meaningful? Am I creating reality, controlling perception? This is like what I was talking about before, creativity versus control. Where in your life are you controlling the way that you see something or the way that others see something instead of creating that reality? Instead of creating that thing, where are you tricking your mind to perceive it differently, or somebody else's mind around you? Okay, and some affirmations for you guys to say to yourselves, to journal on, to do whatever you wish with affirmations, but to connect with the energy of the Magician. I already have everything I need. such a simple one. I already have everything I need. I have the beauty, I have the wits, I have the smart, I have the emotion, I have the logic, I have all of it. I have everything I need. And you can go into listing all of those things that you need and how you already have them. I can actually do this. I can actually do this. And you say it to yourself until you've convinced yourself of it. Mirror affirmations are a really positive thing. Look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, I can actually do this. I am powerful beyond belief. I love that one, because we can't tap into power if we don't believe it's there. So I am powerful beyond belief. I will no longer stand in my own way, because we all know that the person who is in our way the most is ourselves. I will no longer stand in my own way. And I have the power to bring desires into existence. I have the power to bring desire into existence, sorry. Yeah. I think I'll wrap the video up there. I've touched on all of my notes there. I hope that this helps you. I hope that you've now found a deeper understanding of the magician and what that energy is trying to bring forward, what it means when it comes up in a spread, and how you can connect with that energy in order to tap into your own power and your own knowing, your own belief that you can actually do it.